Current state of white supremacy in the United States of America. Some of the things that we're going to discuss during this presentation include current white supremacy groups in the United States, how our nation is founded on white supremacy, how white supremacy impacts gun violence in these states, and how white supremacy affects our culture in the United States. Current white supremacy groups in the United States. One of the oldest known white supremacist groups is the Ku Klux Klan, or also known as the KKK. The KKK has been around since 1865. In the United States, there are roughly 917 hate groups operating, and of that 917 groups, around 450 active groups are white supremacist organizations. Some explanation and insights on the KKK. The KKK has many negative effects on society, and specifically negative effects towards Black Americans. They use many different ways to intimidate and harass citizens. The Ku Klux Klan is considered a domestic terrorist organization in the United States. Acknowledging supremacy. Denial. White supremacy has been built into our country's foundation, and because of that, many refuse to acknowledge white supremacy even exists. Denying the issue reinforces the issue and fails to admit or acknowledge those who have been affected by this issue. Different forms of white supremacy. White supremacy comes in many different forms, which oftentimes leaves people in confusion and denial. One form of white supremacy is institutional white supremacy, which in terms puts Black and brown Americans at the height of underprivileged and disadvantaged arguments. Here are some picture examples of different rallies and white supremacist ideals that enforce this institutional white supremacy. The second image in the middle is an image of the Wilmington insurrection, which occurred on November 10th, 1898, which also shows how white supremacy has been a part of our nation's history for so long. But during this image, a white supremacist and former Confederate did not agree with who got elected, so they led a 2,000 plus people march and started an insurrection against elected officials after they didn't agree with the election results. And this shows how election results and politics can play into white supremacy. And the last image on the right is also an older image, but it also plays into the fact that white supremacy has been around for many, many years. From 1898 to 2023, we still see white supremacy today. But this is an image of the 16th Street church bombing, which occurred on September 15th, 1963. KKK members decided to bomb the 16th Street Baptist Church, which was an all-black church at the time, and this incident occurred only 2 weeks after Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech. The 16th Street Church was located in Birmingham, Alabama, and this incident was very high profile because Martin Luther King had just given his speech about how he hopes that one day former slaves can sit down with their slave owners and there would be a brotherhood and that his children would be equal and that everybody could walk hand in hand. This just shows that white supremacy and segregation back then did not agree with these ideals, and white supremacy enforced these views. Among the casualties were a couple of children, so it made a prominent statement to the KKK's plan and how it would affect society and white supremacy not only back in 1963, 1898, but today and in today's society, we still struggle with these white supremacy views. Effects on culture. White supremacist culture has many extreme ideas that affect the cultures of those living in the U.S. around them. There are a few ideas and values that we see in white supremacy that causes this cultural difference. Many white supremacist groups want everything to conform to their idea of perfect, which only includes that of their race. There are several hate groups that resort to violence and defensiveness to enforce these views, as well as quantity over quality. All of these views affect culture because they only conform to the culture of white supremacists and not to that of other people in different cultures.